You are listening on Garden Story. If you enjoy it, please like, comment, and subscribe. Wishing you happy listening. My brother died 6 months ago, and my sister-in-law Lydia gave birth to a baby girl in the city's boarding house district before disappearing. The neighborhood committee officer found our address and shoved the diaper-wrapped child into my hands. My parents pleaded with me with tears in their eyes to raise her. From that moment on, I sacrificed my youth and future, becoming an unmarried single mother. I raised the child to become a gymnastics champion. But right at the victory celebration party, my sister-in-law returned. She was draped in glittering jewelry, pointing straight at my face and cursing me as a thief who stole her biological daughter. My niece pushed my hand away, crying as she threw herself into her arms. Together with my sister-in-law and biological father, they conspired to send me to a mental hospital. Tortured to death, when I opened my eyes again, I had returned to the exact day when the neighborhood committee officer knocked on my door. Early in the morning, the urgent knocking echoed throughout the hallway, making my heart skip a beat. This was exactly the time when, in my previous life, neighborhood committee officer Helen had knocked like this, drawing all the neighbors out to watch. In front of everyone, she shoved a baby girl into my hands while sternly scolding me for having a child without being married, calling my conduct immoral. Only later did I learn it was my brother's child. My parents begged me, saying since I never planned to marry anyway, I might as well raise her. I felt sorry for my parents, so I agreed and had to pay the price with my very life. Now that life-threatening knocking sound rang out again. I jumped out of bed and rushed to open the door. Outside stood the face I could never forget, even in death. Charlotte Chu, you shameless young woman. You gave birth and threw the baby in the trash. Don't you know abandoning children is a serious crime? Just as I expected, neighbors were poking their heads out, whispering and pointing at me. I stared at her intently, then suddenly performed a backflip, landing right in front of her. The entire hallway fell silent. Officer Helen, have you ever seen any woman who just gave birth able to move around like this? Look at my stomach. Does it look anything like a woman who just delivered? A series of movements left Officer Helen wide-eyed and slack-jawed. At this moment, Mrs. Lee from across the hall finally reacted. That's right. Charlotte is substitute teaching at the university, going out every day. We've never seen her pregnant. You might have the wrong person. There's an address written in the diaper, and it's definitely here. The camera recorded the person who abandoned the child, and the figure looks exactly like her. Officer Helen tried to remain calm. I crossed my arms, raising my voice. Looks similar. There are plenty of people with similar builds on the street. You're making blatant false accusations. I'm calling the police. Hearing me mention calling the police, Officer Helen's expression changed. How can this girl be so argumentative? I snatched the diaper bundle from her hands, holding it high. Not letting me call the police because you have a guilty conscience. These two babies have unclear backgrounds. You and the human traffickers are working together. With that, I dialed 110. Hello, police. There's someone here suspected of child trafficking, and they're trying to frame me. You're making false accusations. Wait for the police to arrive. If you can't explain clearly, I'll sue you for abuse of power and using official business for personal revenge. Heaven gave me a second life, and all the grievances from my previous life have now become my armor. When the police arrived, they saw Officer Helen holding the baby with a red face of anger, while I stood in pajamas, barefoot, with defiant eyes. Neighbors surrounded us. After hearing the whole story, the police looked at the baby girl in the diaper. She was indeed a newborn, still wearing a hospital bracelet. What's this about? The parents left an address and name, she said, pulling a crumpled piece of paper from her bag. The police examined it. The address was indeed my house, and the name matched too. I crossed my arms. I don't know who used my information to frame me. Either way, it's not my child. If you want to raise it, do it yourselves. Just as I finished speaking, my parents pushed through the crowd. Charlotte, just accept her. Can't our family afford to raise one baby girl? My father said as soon as he opened his mouth. Are you both confused? This child has unclear origins, and you dare tell me to accept her? What if her biological parents are murderers? Or have hereditary diseases or bad blood? I don't want to raise a disaster. My parents were silenced by my words. Officer Helen's face darkened as she shoved the baby into my father's hands. This is the Chu family's business. I don't care. I knew this would happen. I shouldn't have gotten involved. Immediately, whispers erupted around us. Everyone understood this matter couldn't escape involvement with my parents. You're talking nonsense. Just now you insisted this was my child, now you're pushing her onto my parents. Do you have evidence? Without evidence, you want to dump this child on our family. Officer, I suspect she's trying to shirk responsibility. After saying this, I shoved the baby back into Officer Helen's hands, acting like this had nothing to do with me. My mother stood beside me, so worried she kept stamping her feet. Charlotte, don't be foolish. These days there are many scammers with sophisticated tricks. Mrs. Lee also chimed in, Mr. and Mrs. Chu, don't be naive. Officer Helen just said it was Charlotte's child. Now she's pushing it on you too. There's definitely something fishy here. Exactly, who knows where this child came from? Officer Helen immediately flew into a rage. I, Helen Chen, have worked at the neighborhood committee for 20 years. Would I go around deceiving people? Last night, your daughter-in-law Lydia ran to an underground clinic in our area, begging the doctor to help her deliver. Here are the documents the doctor gave me, a copy of the ID she left as collateral. With that, she pulled a piece of paper from her cloth bag. My parents leaned in to look and immediately froze. The person on it was clearly my sister-in-law Lydia's information. So the evidence was crystal clear, it was indeed Lydia's child. The neighbors' discussions grew louder. Wasn't Lydia supposed to have died with Kevin Chu long ago? How did she suddenly appear to give birth? Who knows, maybe she didn't die back then but was hiding somewhere. Who did she have the child with? Kevin has been dead for over 6 months. You people are talking nonsense. My daughter-in-law has. My mother was about to argue but swallowed her words. Helen said contemptuously, Chief, Lydia told me that after giving birth, I should bring the baby to your house, saying to hand it over to Charlotte to raise. Officer, I even have a recording from the clinic doctor here. With that, she pulled an old recording device from her bag and pressed play. In my previous life, there was never this recording device. Even when Lydia returned to falsely accuse me, Helen had stood as a witness for her, saying I had actively taken the baby and forced me to stand on the pillar of shame. This woman had no good intentions from the beginning. Helen pursed her lips. Knowing it would be this troublesome, I should have taken it straight to the orphanage. What bad luck. After hearing this, the police also sighed. This is a family matter. You people discuss and resolve it yourselves. I immediately stopped the police. Officer, this isn't a family matter. My sister-in-law has been missing for over 6 months. And now she suddenly appears to give birth. What if she was forced? What if that underground clinic did something to her? Hearing this, the police found it reasonable and immediately escorted Helen to find that underground clinic. My parents also hurried to follow, while I turned and went home to quickly pack my luggage. I didn't want to stay in this house for even one more second. When I came out, a neighbor saw me pulling a suitcase and asked, Charlotte, where are you going? Moving to the university dormitory, to avoid having that baby end up with my parents. Then they'd force me to raise it again. It's my sister-in-law's child that she gave birth to herself. Why should I be responsible? I'm not even married yet. If this gets out, what will my future in-laws think? They'll think I was promiscuous and had a child out of wedlock. Hearing this, they kept nodding their heads. You're right, Charlotte. You must think of yourself. Go quickly? Poor thing. Lydia is really reckless, giving birth and then disappearing. Who knows if that underground clinic harmed her? Impossible. I paid no more attention to their discussions and took a taxi straight to the university. When my parents returned, exhausted and still carrying the child, I had already completed the dormitory check-in procedures. Soon after, my mother's phone call came. As soon as I answered, her voice was filled with exhaustion and anger. Charlotte, where did you run off to? On the other end, I could also hear the crying of a newborn. I calmly replied, I moved to the dormitory. Why did you move? What about this baby now that you've moved? It seemed they had been to that underground clinic, and confirmed the baby was indeed Lydia's, also confirming that Lydia had left immediately after giving birth. I just don't understand why they automatically assume this child must be raised by me. Mom? What does this child have to do with me? It's not like I gave birth to her. The most important thing now is finding Lydia and asking who the father is. I'm not discussing this further. I need to prepare my lesson plans. I'm hanging up now. After hanging up, I continued preparing for my teaching. Life seemed to return to its normal track. At this time, my colleague Mrs. Zhang from the office approached with a bright smile. Charlotte, you don't have a boyfriend yet, right? Let me introduce you to someone. I reflexively wanted to refuse, but then thought, why not? Who are you planning to introduce me to? My nephew, 5 years older than you, a PhD who studied abroad, now working as a visiting professor at our university. How about meeting for lunch today? I happily agreed. Mrs. Zhang was delighted and immediately called to make arrangements. In my previous life, because of raising that baby, I cut off all social connections. Mrs. Zhang had once wanted to introduce me to someone, but I always used the excuse that the child was too young to refuse. Looking back now, I was truly foolish to the extreme. That afternoon, I met David Shen, Zhang's nephew. We both had good impressions of each other. We exchanged WeChat contacts and agreed to be friends first. Mrs. Zhang asked me how I felt afterward. I nodded, not bad, we can get to know each other first. She was very happy. If you two get together, he definitely won't let you suffer. I've watched him grow up, his character is beyond reproach. I smiled shyly, and Mrs. Zhang became even more excited. Just like that, David and I began dating, having meals, watching movies. For a whole month, my parents didn't contact me. I found it peaceful, but I didn't expect my mother to come straight to the university. That day I was teaching when I suddenly received a call from the Academic Affairs Office. Men's Charlotte, please come quickly. Your mother brought your daughter to the Academic Affairs Office. Come fast, she's crying so loudly the whole building can hear her. These words made my head buzz. What daughter? I'm not even married. Where would I get a daughter? Don't talk nonsense. I deliberately spoke loudly so the entire lecture hall could hear. The academic affairs staff was also helpless. I don't know either. Just come and see. After hanging up, all the students' eyes focused on me. What's wrong? Professor Chu. I don't know, the academic affairs office said someone claiming to be my mother came with my daughter. The students immediately erupted in discussion. How is that possible? It must be someone trying to scam her. Does Professor Chu have a daughter? We've never heard of it. These situations are hard to handle nowadays. Who knows what happened before? Hearing these discussions, I pretended to be confused and hurt, and several enthusiastic students accompanied me to the academic affairs office. When we arrived and saw the baby girl lying on the sofa crying, everyone was stunned. A student sighed with relief. How could this be Professor Chu's child? She looks at most a month old. Exactly, who would be so cruel? If they had brought a child several years old, Professor Chu really would have had to jump into the Yellow River, and still couldn't wash herself clean. Isn't this destroying her reputation? I felt cold inside. The academic affairs officer was in a difficult position. The person who brought the baby claimed to be your mother. I don't know either. Hearing this, I said to check the surveillance camera. On the screen was a completely unfamiliar middle-aged woman. I immediately suggested calling the police. This person is absolutely not my mother, and I don't know her either. Everyone was still hesitant, so I spread my hands. This is clearly child abandonment. I'm a teacher who normally contacts many people. Who knows who might impersonate my mother to target me? I absolutely will not raise someone else's child. Everyone found this reasonable and called the police. The police came to understand the situation, and then took the baby away. I even deliberately asked an additional question. Where will the baby be taken? Where else? If the biological parents can't be found, it can only go to an orphanage. Hearing this definitive answer, the stone in my heart finally fell. In this life, I absolutely will not raise that ungrateful child again. As soon as the police left, my mother's WeChat sent a voice message. I clicked to hear her angry voicey. Charlotte, I've contacted your sister-in-law. She said she's going south to work. Your father and I are old and really don't have the strength to care for a child. Just consider her your own daughter and raise her. I immediately typed back. What are you saying, Mom? I already have a boyfriend and will get married, and have my own children later. I absolutely will not raise this baby. I didn't mention what happened at the academic affairs office today, and she didn't bring it up either. I acted like I knew nothing at all. David was indeed very good to me. 6 months later, we got engaged. On our wedding day, I only invited a few close colleagues and friends, and didn't tell anyone from my parents' side. After marriage, we registered to participate in an exchange program in the general district. David also officially became a special professor in the general district. In the following days, except for holidays, I never returned to what was called home. Even when I did return, I would just put down my things, sit for a few minutes, and leave. I gave birth to my daughter Anna, hoping she would be safe and sound. From a young age, Anna showed amazing talent in gymnastics. At 15 she won the National Youth Championship, and was specially recruited into the national team. When this news spread, the whole family was proud of her. David was even more delighted, and brought the whole family back to our hometown, to hold a grand celebration banquet. Relatives, friends, and neighbors from far and near all came. Even my parents shamelessly attended. Although Anna was only 16, years of training had made her tall and beautiful. This made my parents naturally assume that the girl everyone was praising was the baby Lydia had given birth to years ago. My mother held Anna's hand, a calculating gleam in her eyes. If only I had known you were this talented. I would have been so happy. Mom, why are you mentioning Lydia on such a happy day? Has she come back? My mother's eyes immediately wavered. No, she hasn't. Oh, it's been so many years and she hasn't come back to visit her parents. Something must have happened to her outside. I heard many people go missing these days and can hardly be found. Over the years, I had heard neighbors discussing Lydia many times. Under my deliberate propaganda, everyone knew she had abandoned her child after giving birth and was a heartless, ungrateful woman. Therefore, most people assumed Lydia had vanished from this world. Only I knew that my parents were still secretly in contact with her. Now hearing me say this, my mother immediately became unhappy, her voice changing and tearing apart the joyful atmosphere of the banquet hall. What are you talking nonsense about? Your aunt is still alive and well. Immediately, all eyes turned to us. My mother realized her slip of the tongue and looked flustered. I smiled, so Mom is still in contact with sister-in-law. Then why doesn't she come back to find her daughter? Oh right, abandoning her own child, she's probably not doing well outside, and doesn't dare come back. Let's not mention her on this happy day. Hearing this, my mother clearly sighed with relief, but she opened her mouth as if to say something and remained silent. In my heart, the last bit of hope finally died completely. In my previous life, when my niece achieved great success, Lydia had returned. This time would be the same. I knew she would definitely come today. As for when, I wasn't sure. But I no longer cared. Because of my daughter and the national team, leaders from the General Sports Administration and reporters from various newspapers all came. At this moment, all eyes were on our table. Anna, as the main character, was invited onto the stage. When she stepped up, my parents completely failed to realize she was only 16 years old. And Lydia's daughter, if still alive, would be 18 this year. They didn't notice this fatal flaw and kept looking down at their phones as if waiting for some news. I smiled coldly, tightening my grip on David's hand as we looked at each other and smiled. Anna stood on stage, her clear voice ringing out, "To achieve today's results, I want to thank my mother most of all. Without my mother's nurturing and support, I wouldn't have today." "Mom, come up here." My daughter reached out toward me. I gently adjusted my dress hem. Just as I was about to stand up, a sharp woman's voice suddenly rang out. "She's not your mother. She doesn't deserve to stand beside you." Hearing this, everyone turned to look, and I sighed with relief. What needed to come had finally come. I turned to see the person who had just spoken was Lydia, beside her a middle-aged man wearing a mink coat and a thick gold chain. She's here. She finally came after all. I suppressed the waves in my heart. After more than 10 years, she still looked the same, but time had left clear marks on her face. The thick makeup couldn't hide the wrinkles at the corners of her eyes, and the exhaustion throughout her body. Compared to me, it was truly heaven and earth. At this moment, she linked arms with that man and strode forward. Anna frowned slightly. "Who are you?" "This is your aunt, Lydia Lee." I proactively spoke up, clearly identifying her status. Lydia was so agitated her whole body trembled. "You're talking nonsense. Charlotte, child, I am your biological mother." The entire banquet hall immediately buzzed with discussion, all eyes focusing on me. Anna frowned. "You're the one talking nonsense. Aunt, I am my mother's biological child. You gave birth and then abandoned the baby years ago. The baby was sent to an orphanage by my grandparents. I had never hidden the story about Lydia from my children. When they were young, they had asked about their maternal grandparents. I told them directly that the two grandparents were still alive, but I didn't want to go back. I also told them about Lydia giving birth, and my parents forcing me to raise the child, so the Shen family all knew about the grudge between me and Lydia. At this moment, Lydia burst into tears. "Child, she's lying to you, she's lying to you. After I gave birth, I asked your grandparents to help take care of you. Who knew this vicious woman would steal you away? All these years, she didn't dare return home precisely because she was afraid I would find you. Sister, why did you do this? I've been searching for you so hard all these years. You can't separate mother and child like this." Hearing this, everyone looked at her. Lydia cried heartbreakingly, but very quickly she realized something was wrong. Looking up, she saw the surrounding gazes were all contemptuous and suspicious, and she immediately panicked. Why doesn't anyone believe me? Didn't she really steal my child? That's not true. At this moment, Mrs. Lee from across the street stepped forward. Lydia, don't talk nonsense. That year Officer Helen brought the baby saying it was Charlotte's child. But Charlotte exposed her on the spot and called the police. Only then did they find out you had given birth and abandoned the baby, leaving it with your parents. Your parents were old and couldn't raise her, so they gave the baby to someone else. Hearing this, Lydia was stunned. My mother immediately stood up, her voice trembling. I didn't give her away. I had someone take her to Charlotte's school. Mrs. Lee pursed her lips. When Charlotte got married, we all attended. Did we see any child? That's right, the Chu family. You two can't just talk nonsense. My mother was flustered. I did have someone take her to Charlotte's school. Lydia, don't be confused anymore. Your sister has raised your child for so many years. You should be grateful to her. Look at the child now, so outstanding, already on the national team. She was truly scared, especially when she met my cold gaze. She felt inexplicably panicked and immediately changed her tone. Lydia quickly wiped away her tears and turned to me. Sister, so I misunderstood you. But child, I am truly your biological mother. Anna looked at her in amazement, then at me. You're talking nonsense. I'm not your child. My mother-in-law also stepped forward, without hesitation slapping her across the face. What are you talking nonsense about? This is my daughter-in-law who carried the pregnancy for 10 months and gave birth in pain. From filing the prenatal records to delivery, the hospital has complete files. When Anna was born, she had a difficult delivery with severe hemorrhaging, and had to be emergency treated at the provincial hospital for 3 days before surviving the danger. Our entire family had to use countless connections to save both mother and child. You open your mouth and claim my precious granddaughter was born by you. Do you have any shame left? My father-in-law also stood up, shouting loudly. If you dare say another word of nonsense, I'll immediately call the police and sue you for defamation. Lydia clutched her swollen, red face from the slap, her lips trembling, completely stunned. She shrank back slightly, then suddenly stared directly at me. I raised my eyebrows and looked back. She immediately reacted. It's you, Charlotte, you faked all of this. The man beside her also spoke harshly. Now your family has power and influence professors, company owners. Forging some documents, how hard could that be? If you're so capable, go do a DNA test. Child, let's go do a paternity test. Then everything will be clear. My daughter paid no attention to him. Her paternal grandparents still firmly stood in front of my daughter and me. My biological parents stood on Lydia's side. Charlotte, just return the child to your sister-in-law. That's right, Lydia has suffered outside. It's been so many years, and don't you still have a son? Give Anna back to her. The guests all turned to look and discuss in whispers. What's really going on here? Did she actually steal someone else's child? Raised her and now doesn't want to give her back? More than 10 years of feelings, how can you just abandon them? But it is her biological child after all. Ridiculous. She already said it's her own biological child. How can she give it to others? If Lydia keeps insisting the child is hers, does she have evidence? Does the child have any birthmarks or distinguishing features? Mom, did you personally see me accept that baby? I asked coldly. Both were stunned. I smiled coldly. Forgot to tell you all. My daughter is only 16 this year, currently on the national youth gymnastics team. And your daughter should be 18 this year if she's still alive. The ages don't match, you've got the wrong person. Hearing this, everyone suddenly realized, that's right, Anna is 16. I attended her birthday celebration. I remember now, Anna is the younger daughter. Charlotte gave birth in her 2nd year of marriage. The Chu family didn't invite these two when Charlotte got married either. Right, I remember it that way too. At this moment, my parents' faces looked extremely ugly. Lydia staggered back 2 steps, looking incredulous. You're lying. I understand now, you deliberately falsified the child's age so you wouldn't have to return her to me. Everyone around burst into mocking laughter, all thinking Lydia was acting like a madwoman. Just then, the leader of the General Sports Administration stepped forward with a stern expression. You are the one talking complete nonsense. If what you're saying is true, then the qualification for national team selection would be immediately revoked. This matter is extremely serious. I will definitely report it immediately and have the police investigate. All of Anna's competition registration records clearly state her age as 16. At this moment, my daughter also took out her ID card. I'm ready to do a DNA test and agree to police investigation. But if I'm not your daughter, then you must bear all legal responsibility for fabrication, false accusation, and damaging my mother's reputation today. Anna is the treasure I carried for 10 months and gave birth to in pain. From childhood, she's been obedient and filial, beloved by her paternal grandparents. My son also immediately stood beside me. What basis do you people have for saying this about my mother? Besides your mouths talking nonsense, what evidence do you have? My mother has birth certificates, household registration, and my ID card. What do you have? My mother's face immediately turned pale. She looked at me, her voice trembling. You're lying. Charlotte, if Anna is truly your biological child, then where is Lydia's daughter? I spread my hands, pretending to suddenly realize. She's probably at the orphanage. That's right, 18 years ago, when I was still working at the university lecture hall, there was indeed a day when academic affairs told me someone claiming to be my mother brought a baby girl to the academic affairs office, telling me to come pick her up. I went down to check the camera and found I didn't know the person carrying the baby at all, so I immediately called the police. The police took the baby away, probably to an orphanage. Many teachers and students at the school can testify to this. If you don't believe it, you can check the police exit records from that year. Hearing this, Lydia let out a piercing scream, rushing toward me like a madwoman to hit me, but I quickly counterattacked, slapping her hard and sending her tumbling to the ground. How dare you hit me? Charlotte, give me back my daughter. I laughed coldly. You beast. You gave birth to a bastard child and ran away, claiming it was my brother's child, dumping the mess on my parents. Then trying to frame me and force me to raise your child. You enjoyed yourself outside for more than 10 years, and now seeing my daughter has a future, you come crawling back wanting to take advantage. Let me tell you, you don't have that kind of luck. With your muddy, worthless background that can't even build a wall, how could you give birth to a champion like my daughter? Wake up from your dreams. You might as well ask those two good parents standing beside you. Who did they ask to bring the baby to my school that year? Why didn't they bring it themselves? My mother completely panicked. Facing Lydia's questioning gaze, she hurried to explain, I was afraid Charlotte wouldn't see me, so I hired a stranger to take it there. I was hiding nearby and clearly saw Charlotte take the baby inside. She suddenly glared at me. Charlotte, how can you be so heartless? How can you send her to an orphanage? She's your biological niece. Well, she's also your biological granddaughter. So why did you heartlessly dump her on me that year? Lydia screamed like a madwoman, choking everyone. My daughter is Anna Chen. It's her, definitely Charlotte deceived me. The gold chain-wearing man beside her also spoke harshly. My daughter, Richard Lee's daughter, how could she be in an orphanage? Lydia, if you don't give me an explanation for this, I won't let it go. At this moment Lydia completely lost her composure. I took out my phone and continued calling the police. Even the police couldn't stop them. Lydia rolled around making a scene. Finally, I agreed to do a DNA test, demanding it be done urgently. After that, my daughter returned to continue the celebration banquet. I also assured the General Sports Administration leader that there would absolutely be no problems. All of Anna's records were 100% authentic. 3 hours later, the DNA test results came back, clearly proving in black and white that I was Anna's biological mother. The moment she held the results, Lydia completely collapsed, looking up at me in horror and disbelief. You really sent my daughter to an orphanage? I spread my hands. A child with unclear origins, how could I keep and raise her? I've told you countless times already, hand her over to the police. If they can't find the parents, she can only go to an orphanage. If she's lucky, she might still be there now. You should go look for her there. If unlucky, she might have been adopted long ago. If I were you, I'd immediately run to the orphanage to search instead of wasting time here. Before she could react, that Richard fellow had already delivered a powerful kick, sending her tumbling to the ground. You lowly woman. That year you told me you were helping the Chu family with surrogacy. Now when there's a future, you bring me to claim the child. So what now? Useless trash. Richard stomped hard on her face. Lydia screamed in agony. My parents rushed to protect her, but were also kicked down by him. At this moment, my mother remembered me and turned to grab my pants leg. Charlotte, think of something. Are you going to just watch your sister-in-law get beaten to death? I kicked hard, shaking her hand off. Didn't Mom also just watch her own daughter get pushed toward death? If I couldn't produce evidence today, The one being criticized and accused of kidnapping children would be me. I would become a despised human trafficker. Am I not Mom's biological daughter that you would treat me like this? Besides, your granddaughter isn't even confirmed to be a biological grandchild. My mother said angrily. You're just too petty. We're all family with your good conditions. What's the big deal about raising one more? I truly shouldn't hold any illusions about them. I shook off her hand. Sorry, I can't help. If you want to, report it to the police yourselves. Anyway, I won't get involved in this mess. Holding the DNA test results, I told the police directly about what happened today. I wanted to sue her for defamation and disturbing public order, demanding a public apology and compensation for my daughter's emotional distress. She ruined my daughter's celebration banquet. I absolutely won't let this go. Immediately after, David called our legal team to handle everything, while we returned to continue our daughter's celebration banquet. The General Sports Administration leader, seeing the DNA results, was completely reassured. This is good. At least the champion's future won't be affected. When the banquet ended, our whole family returned to the hotel. David had already bought us a house here. Who would have thought that early the next morning, my parents called, crying and barely able to speak. Charlotte, come quickly. Can we go to the orphanage together? Mom is begging you. For Mom's sake, help your sister-in-law once. She's about to be beaten to death by that Richard guy. Hearing this, I glanced at David, who nodded, so I agreed to go to the orphanage with him. Standing at the orphanage gate, I saw Lydia with a bruised and battered face. As soon as she saw me, hatred flashed in her eyes. I smiled coldly. This was all her own doing, nothing to do with me. Going inside, the orphanage staff told us that the girl named Mimi Chu had long been removed from the registry for poor conduct. What do you mean by removed from the registry? Lydia asked in shock. Stealing and fighting repeatedly without reform. Didn't finish middle school before getting involved with society's dregs, and never coming back. If you want to find her, you can go to the Phantom Night Entertainment Center, on the west side of the city. I heard she works there. We searched for that entertainment center. As soon as we entered, we smelled the heavy scent of cigarette smoke and alcohol. After asking around, we finally found the girl named Mimi in a dark room. She had dyed her hair bright pink and was rolling dice and drinking with some thugs. Her belly was protruding high, at least 7 or 8 months along. This scene stunned me. She was only 18 years old and already about to become a mother. The man beside her looked young but full of delinquent air. Seeing this scene, Lydia staggered forward, asking in a trembling voice, "Child, are you Mimi?" She didn't even bother to look up, just grunted indifferently. "Who's looking for me?" The thug beside her put his arm around her waist, looking at us provocatively. "Who are you people? What do you want with my girlfriend? And who are you?" Lydia asked angrily. "I'm her man, the father of the baby in her belly. Come on." Lydia was so angry she nearly fainted. "Mimi is only 18, you got her pregnant with your child," the thug said contemptuously. "So what? It was mutual consent. See, this baby is my flesh and blood. Who is this old lady?" "Here to meddle. I'm her mother," Lydia shouted. Hearing this, both Mimi and that guy were stunned. Then Mimi looked up, her eyes dull from drink, stared at Lydia and burst out laughing. "My mother. I've been an orphan since childhood. You planning to come claim me for free?" Old hag dressed up so fancy but still trying to adopt a child here. After the thug finished speaking, he spat at Lydia's feet. "Get lost. Don't interfere with our drinking." Richard immediately charged forward. "You little punk, want to die?" Seeing Richard's aggressive manner, the guy immediately cowered, hiding behind Mimi. "Looking like this and claiming to be my daughter. You must have the wrong person," Richard said, looking at Mimi with disgust. I pulled out Mimi's file and photos from the orphanage, comparing them with the girl in front of us. It was definitely the same person. No mistake. "Mimi, these are your biological parents." Mimi stared at them wide-eyed. "If you can't believe it, go get a DNA test. See the name brands they're wearing, they're very rich." Hearing this, Mimi's eyes immediately lit up. She quickly pulled the thug to stand up. "Did you hear? These are my biological parents. You're going to be blessed from now on. Sorry about just now, I didn't recognize Mount Tai when I saw it. Really embarrassing." Lydia looked at their behavior and felt nauseous, stammering, "Impossible. How can you be my daughter?" I was delighted to fan the flames. "Lydia, why are you like this? You haven't been home for more than 10 years. Now you come back to find your biological daughter, right? Now your daughter is standing right in front of you. Why won't you acknowledge her?" David also chimed in. "That's right. You always said your daughter was the most outstanding. Next is the second story in modern times. Now you've found her. Don't reject her just because she's had some setbacks. That would really hurt the child. Lydia was so provoked by my husband and me that she nearly fainted. I smoothly pushed Mimi. Hurry up and find a place for your parents to treat you to a meal, and do a DNA test to officially recognize your ancestry. Last night, David had already had people thoroughly investigate Richard's background. The name brands and gold chain he wore were all fake. He wasn't some big boss either. Just a gambling parasite who had accomplished nothing for years. This trip following Lydia back was meant to extort money from my family, but he never expected I wouldn't give him the chance. Now seeing his own daughter in this state, he was stunned, but I wouldn't let this go easily. Only when they held the DNA results confirming the mother-daughter relationship did I feel relieved. Trash belongs with trash. My parents were also stunned by the results showing Mimi had no blood relation whatsoever to my brother. Yet years ago they had forced me to raise her. They trembled with rage, wanting to drive the whole bunch away. But it wouldn't be that easy. Since they wanted a grandchild, I'd let them have their wish fulfilled completely. I brought all 5 of them back to my parents' run-down apartment and turned to leave with David. Lydia panicked as if she wanted to follow. Mimi was convinced they were wealthy and brought her thug boyfriend to move into my parents' house. Lydia and Richard also had nowhere to sleep when they returned. All 7 people were crammed into an apartment of less than 60 square meters. Later, Lee called to tell me their house was in chaos every day like a broken market. Mimi demanded a wedding, forcing Lydia to provide 200,000 yuan for the bride price. The thug also demanded an additional 300,000 yuan for changing how he addressed them. Where could they get that much money? Originally, these 2 had planned to come and extort money from me, never expecting I had prepared to return this whole pile of trouble to them. Now they absolutely refused to acknowledge this daughter, regretting it until they turned green. But I wasn't a fool, I would never care. Seeing they couldn't get money, Mimi and the thug used a rolling pin to brutally beat Richard. When my parents tried to intervene, they also got savagely beaten. My father suffered a concussion, my mother was pushed down and broke her leg. When Lydia tried to run, Mimi broke her arm with the rolling pin. When I received the call from the hospital and arrived, I only saw them all lying on beds moaning and groaning. My mother grabbed my hand crying, "Charlotte, Mom was wrong, really wrong. Can you help Mom once and drive those people away?" "How can Mom do that? That's Lydia's biological daughter, your biological granddaughter." Before, she went astray because she lacked parental love and education. Now you parents must use all your love to reform her, and help her return to the right path. After hearing this, my mother immediately collapsed completely. I withdrew my hand, paid their hospital fees, and turned to leave. Lydia, in too much pain to lift her arm, still tried to ask for money. But I didn't hesitate, kicking the bed rail hard. "You and I have no relationship anymore. Lydia, yesterday you ruined my daughter's celebration banquet, and slandered my family in front of everyone. My lawyer will settle this debt with you. Now you still want money from me? Dream on. As for Mom and Dad, I'll pay the minimum legal support amount. Beyond that, I won't manage even 1 cent more. In my previous life, I died under their calculations and coldness. In this life, I absolutely will never step into the same trap again." As soon as I left, the desperate crying of my parents and Lydia rang out behind me. Later, Mrs. Lee would occasionally tell me about their household, saying Mimi absolutely refused to leave, and even called the thug's parents to come help with the pregnancy. Lydia completely became the family's servant. Later, Mimi gave birth to a daughter, enraging the thug's whole family. They blamed Mimi for not knowing how to give birth to a son and conveniently beat Lydia too. The thug's family became even more demanding, constantly asking for money, beating them when they didn't pay. Lydia was even forced to go scavenging through trash and collecting bottles. In short, their whole family became tools to support those 2 blood-sucking parasites. A bunch of trash entangled with each other, torturing themselves until they rotted. 6 months later, David and I returned to our hometown to handle house and land matters. We planned to sell the house in the old neighborhood and settle permanently in Beijing with our daughter. Right at the neighborhood entrance, I saw Lydia. In just 6 months, she looked like she had aged decades, her hair already gray, her eyes cloudy and exhausted. As soon as she saw my car, she rushed over like a madwoman, pounding hard on the window. "Charlotte, it shouldn't be like this. It shouldn't be like this. Didn't you already jump off a building and die? Everything that belongs to you should be mine, should be Anna's, Everything should be mine. She chased after us while screaming until her heart and lungs were torn. I pulled the window shut tight, the corner of my mouth curling into a cold smile. So she had also been reborn. What a pity she was reborn at the wrong time, and chose the wrong approach. In this life, she would never have the chance to hurt me even a little bit. Let her stay with her precious daughter, embracing that pile of chaos, living out a rotten and putrid life. The end. Thank you sincerely for listening to this story with us. If there are any issues that need improvement, please give us your feedback. This story reveals profound lessons about self-advocacy and boundary setting. The protagonist's transformation from passive victim to empowered individual demonstrates that we must protect ourselves from toxic family dynamics and manipulation. Her refusal to sacrifice her future for others' convenience shows that saying no to unreasonable demands isn't selfish. It's necessary for survival. The narrative illustrates how enabling destructive behavior perpetuates cycles of abuse, while establishing firm boundaries can break these patterns. Ultimately, it teaches that we cannot control others' choices, but we can control our responses and refuse to be victims of their dysfunction. Thank you for listening on Garden Story. If you enjoy it, please like, comment, and subscribe. Wishing you happy listening.